time now for one more quick diversion, fan questions. And this first fan question is from at Shock is a Pair. He's asking, what is the most exciting car you've driven with a low horsepower output?
Most exciting car I have driven with a low horsepower output was an Exige Cup car. So Lotus built like a dozen of them for the U.S. And when they did the bigger Exiges that were for the UK, they only brought them to the U.S. as fully caged out FIA fuel cell race cars. And I, like an idiot, was like, I'm driving this thing on the road because I had an MSO for it. I was a car dealer. I could get pulled over. This would be okay. You should never drive a caged car without a helmet. I didn't have a helmet with me. Send it. But yeah, that was 345 horsepower V6. It was the Evora S engine, the Camry V6. And it was awesome. I love Lotus products. If I had a spot in the garage, I think having an Exige S 260 would be a great car to own. They're super rare. They're super awesome. They're unrepeatable in the way they were built. And so I love those cars. I'd probably have an S2000 as well if I had a space for it and was 5 inches shorter. But I like high revving, low horsepower, lightweight cars like anybody else should. And I love raw cars that have zero technology in them, and that one certainly qualifies. And so I love an Exige, and I fit when I'm in it. It's a pain, obviously, to get in and out, but I would still own one all day long. I just have other cars right now that I like more.
Well, are you taller than Clarkson? Because I'm pretty sure back on old Top Gear, Clarkson really liked the Honda S2000, and he drove that on a couple of challenges.
I can drive an S2000. I can't live with one on a regular basis. He's 6'4", I'm 6'5", so we're very similar there. Clarkson always said something that is one of my favorite quotes of any automotive journalist. He said, "I can fit into anything that I want to." And that's very, very true. I have contorted myself into many, many cars that I had no business being in or driving or making move, but I haven't found an awful lot of them that I can't drive. I certainly find a lot of them that I wouldn't drive an awful lot simply because my head doesn't fit. But I'm still going to drive it and drive it hard whenever I get the chance to.
It's funny that, talking about driving position and stuff like that, because I remember when Emil Beret came on to our talk show, and Emil did some stunt driving for Jeremy on the Grand Tour. And he says, like, he would always try to tell Jeremy about, like, correcting his driving position. He's like, it's just terrible. He doesn't sit correctly at all. And Jeremy never, ever wants to hear any of it.
No, and I think that's, you see, when you're dealing with someone who you're going to see 12 times a year on television, that is a very different relationship between presenter and viewer than we have on YouTube. And that's good and bad. So it's a lot harder for us to, like, you couldn't get away with that on YouTube. If you're making a lot of videos, and I'm not that, like, I mean, I appear in, I don't 20, 30, 40 stories a year on the VINWiki channel. But if I'm Hoover or Freddy, and we're seen driving in a stupid way all the time, like, we don't get away with that the way that other presenters on other shows always have. And so you can't fake West Coast customs builds, and you can't have stunt drivers switching in because you can't do this thing in a car. And again, we're not professional drivers, we're not stunt drivers, we're not good at that stuff, but we have to do it. And that's another part of the minuscule budget that we have for our shows on YouTube or for Car Trek relative to what a full-fledged 250 grand at the low end, $2 million at the high end per episode budget that our favorite shows always had, is a very different calculation. And so the fact that, yeah, they have some bad habits, they have some bad things that you'd have to dance around, but again, when they're on camera for less than 12 hours a year, they can be very different than they're perceived. We don't necessarily have that privilege.
Fair enough. The second question is from at ZK. You touched a little bit already about the responsibility you feel, running VINWiki. But so he's asking, was the rapid growth of VINWiki stressful in terms of making sure that each new upload was better than the one before and that there was a continued growth?
That's a great question. The weight was only due to the content volume requirement, not so much finding the greatest stories. I mean, the stories sort of come to us now, and obviously they radiated from my sphere of people I knew in the automotive world, but it's very much a situation where I knew that I needed to produce content on a daily basis. And that was really, really hard, particularly as I had to learn to edit. I'd never edited a video in my life. I didn't own a camera worth shooting on. I had to go buy one and replicate the setup and then learn, oh, it's all about the lens and all about the lighting and all about getting rid of this terrible echo in my warehouse. And so that was very, very stressful, learning to be a videographer. However, one of the saving graces of social media content creation is that the quality threshold is not really that big of a deal. And guys who approach it from film school, like JF Musial, who is infinitely better at making a car video than any of us, struggle with YouTube because they can't possibly produce the volume of content that you need to build an audience while maintaining their insane thresholds. And I'm so glad they're still finding places and ways to do that, because everything he does for Porsche, everything he's done with Apex, everything he's done with Tangent Vector is phenomenal. But I know it eats him alive to see people like me have an audience for car videos, because on deserving it, based on our film capabilities, I deserve nothing and he deserves all of it. But we have a recipe that works for YouTube. Hoover has a recipe that works for YouTube. Doug DeMuro, in 2 t-shirts and shorts, standing behind a car to talk about it, which makes no sense at all, has a way to make YouTube videos work. And so we've all found our niche, and I love that. And I love the fact that they wouldn't be TV shows. They're not good enough to go anywhere else, but they go on YouTube and an audience gets it and they relate to it. And so that's where I felt, I mean, admittedly, our content style hasn't changed in 4 years and 1,100 videos. So that is great. And I am very, very blessed that I accidentally had a way to do this, because I can't do anything else. I can't make a moving camera shot because I don't know even how you do it. I watch the guys on Car Trek that we hire to shoot it, and I'm like, nope, I can't possibly do that. I'm going to, slouch in my chair and tell you about some war story that was a whole lot of fun at the time and or wasn't, and now it is fun to talk about. And so, that's where I think that there is pressure, and we want to make sure that we're putting out the best possible content, but I don't know what's going to be the best possible content. I mean, I did a story 2 weeks ago about Paris Hilton getting a DUI in my SLR and then getting it repoed, which is about as clickbait perfection as you could ever ask for the YouTubes. And it got 180,000 views, and it'll continue to probably get 500 one day. But then I have a guy come in and just tell a story about knowing Steve Wynn and why he got his dealership taken away because of his LaFerrari, and that's getting 100,000 a day a week later. And so we really don't know always what makes them successful on YouTube, but it's a very interesting learning process, and one I hope doesn't go away anytime soon.
Well, being disappointed with 100,000, I hope that's something that at one point in my YouTube career I can be disappointed getting 100,000 views on a video.
Well, and don't let me make that seem overly I don't know, conceited. I love the videos that get no views a lot more than the ones that get a lot of views most of the time. And I've had guys like Bill Warner, who runs the Amelia Island Concours and has truly epic car stories, but they're of obscure cars, like a month's, and ain't nobody clicking a month's story. But I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna make sure it's there, and I don't care if it gets 4,000 views or 5 views. Like, it's on there because that's the kind of thing that I want to have immortalized. I mean, obviously, we need videos to be successful, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure it's all worth watching.
I like that because, to be honest, even though it's to a very, very different scale, here at the Master Cylinder, I really like doing what I like to do, even if I know that it might not get the most views or might not get the most likes. Like, for example, I think the other day I posted I'm doing this little tech talk series on my Instagram where I posted like a thing about how the ERS system works in a Formula One car, and I knew that most likely people are not going to be very interested in it, but just personally for me, I was very interested and wanted to learn about it, and so I just posted it anyway. So it's nice to see that even at the higher level, that sort of thinking exists. All right.
Well, and it's a privilege, right? I mean, to be able to not so much care about the performance of a video. Now, fortunately, it's because in the aggregate, they all do okay, and our videos have super long tails and they still get a bunch of views down the road. But I I mean, there are a ton of stories that I'll put on there that I know won't get that many views, but I just care a lot about the storyteller or the nature of the story and the kind of thing that I hope somebody can learn from.
For sure. Well, my last question for fan questions, and I guess not my question, it's the question from at Chi-Town Exotics. How did you meet Tyler Hoover and Freddy Tavares?
So I met Freddy because DeMuro got so much heat from Jalopnik for writing about my record that he didn't want to write about. In 2015, we won an event called the 2904, which you have to race from New York to LA for $1 a mile. So we had to spend less than $2,904. And I bought a $1,500 salvage title, 12 owner, two accidents branded title S55 and rebuilt it with a friend to drive across country, and we won that event. And so Freddie was essentially voluntold to do the article on it while he was writing for Jalopnik as well. And so he wrote the article there. And so we kind of stayed in touch. And he had started his YouTube channel not too terribly long, maybe a year and a half before we started the VINWiki YouTube channel. I think he had like 50 to 60,000 subscribers when we started. And he came through Atlanta at one point and drove several of my cars, the CL, the S55, maybe the 993. I don't know why we didn't drive a Mercy at that time, but yeah. So I met him through there, and then I met Hoovie. Freddie asked if I wanted Tyler Hoover to come tell car stories on a trip through Atlanta that he was doing on a project with Auto Trader. I said, of course. And I had bought my S65 at an auction, and it was having 100 different issues at the time. And I remember picking him up in it and us trying to diagnose all of it ineptly as he came over. And he told a few stories, and was brilliant as he is. And yeah, so we just kind of stayed in touch through that.
Yeah, I love the way Tyler like exclaims when he speaks. Even more than that, I like on Card Trek when Freddy tries to make fun of the way that Tyler talks and imitates him.
Tyler is a very unique bird, and it's great because I mean I think it's hard for me to believe, and certainly there's evidence to the contrary, that Hammond, May, and Clarkson are as good of friends as we want them to be, right? In real life. But like, I truly enjoy the company of these guys. And in the same way that you are with college roommates, like, I can make fun of them down to their core, and the next moment we're fine. And I can need them, and they're there. And I think that friendship and that balance is whatever staying power Car Trek has. It's going to come from that. It's not the cars. It's always going to be a friendship and travel piece, and it should be. The cars are a vessel. They're a part of it. They're the way that we know each other. But in reality, I expect and I hope that people will stay because of the friendship that we demonstrate there, and it's real.
Now that you're talking about funny moments between you three, moments of bonding, like the from Car Trek season 3 just popped into my head. So did Tyler really just fell into that lake when he was canoeing out there?
No, he decided to jump into that lake
Or sorry, I jumped in.
because he did not tether his rowboat to the barge where our message was. And we had this weird lake and this weird castle in Missouri that we had rented, and we needed to find a way to use it. And so we put a light bar and a smoke bomb out on this barge, and it made sense for Tyler to go out there and get it. And we never thought, I mean, it was freezing cold. I mean, Freddie and I were sitting by a fire in order to tolerate the scene. It was in October, but it was still in Missouri, and it was chilly in the middle of the night. And I think I joked like, "Oh, it'd be real silly if you tried to swim back because it shouldn't have been possible." And the leeches that should have found him and the parasites that inevitably went in there, I mean, it was awful. But he just decides to do it, and he had a mild panic attack halfway through, realizing like it's way further when you're in the water than it looks when you're standing on the boat. And no, he made it, and he was freezing cold, and somehow he still wore that shirt after it dried out a couple more times that week. So yeah, but no, he's crazy. He's perfect in that regard, and certainly I never expected to be the most put together member of a crew, but everybody's got to have a role, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that that was one part that I was like genuinely surprised to see Tyler just swimming through the lake in the middle of the night. And yeah,
Not
I
as
could
much
tell
as
it was
we
cold
would.
because it's a Christmas special in Missouri, right?
That's it.
Um,
That's it.
yeah.